Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Storm Champ, the podcast that focuses on individual and everyday acts of resistance and resilience as we navigate the storms of life. My name is Kim, and on the call tonight we have Angie and Carlos. And
Hey,
the
Kim.
topic of choice tonight that we wanted to share with our listeners and get a little deeper dive into is the topic of persistence. Persistence is kind of a broad subject in general, as is resiliency, but I know a lot of times we face certain challenges and we don't really know what the outcome might be, but yet we've persisted. So, Carlos, why don't you go ahead and just sort of open it up for our listeners and try to define and maybe describe a little bit better what we're talking about tonight?
Yeah, I think for me, persistence is the ability to weather life storms and be able to bounce back from them. So, like, for example, I know for me, when I think about persistence, I think about when I have a bad day or I'm having a bad week. Do I kind of think through the emotions of that, and then figure out how to still get the things I need to get done actually done? Or
Mm-hmm.
how do I bounce back from it? Or how do I even taking a moment and take a step back and like, okay, what am I feeling right now? And kind of work through that quickly and with purpose, but then still be able to like refocus on the things that I need to get done, whether it be for my family, whether it be for work, whether it be for, somebody that, friend or whatever, maybe I'm interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I kind of get through that? And how do I kind of frame my mind around like, I'm going to bounce back from this thing and I'm still going to get the job done.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the challenge in general, when we feel overwhelmed or maybe defeated or even challenged, if it's not so, end result, just thinking, fuck it, I'm going to quit, I'm done with this. Persistence really requires a certain level of focus, determination. Grit is another word that kind of comes to mind. And I'm sure we could all speak to those sorts of ideas and topics within their own podcast episode. But tonight, focusing on the idea of persistence, it really requires an inner focus and determination to, like you said, get that thing or things done despite whatever challenges we're facing right in front of us. So I think for me, when we started discussing the idea of speaking on persistence, it really required me to take a look at and kind of examine what tools am I able to use in that moment to overcome whatever the immediate challenges are and kind of prioritize the end goal. So I know for me, and I think a lot of people in this life, we're really distracted and we have a lot of different things that we're focusing on all at the same time. So how do we sort of narrow in on that one or two or half dozen things to focus on in order to not be incredibly defeated by the challenges in front of us and to allow ourselves to persist beyond that? Are there any tips that you can think of?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really kind of understanding what I'm trying to get to. So I'm big on setting goals and setting like a vision and trying to get there and then figuring out the steps to get there. And not all of it's fun, right? Most of it actually sucks a lot. So like, especially for
Right.
like the bigger things, whether it comes from like your career or just maybe your health, physical, mental, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very goal oriented, right? And I find that once I started establishing better goals and trying to understand a better vision, then when I have those rough days and I'm like, all right, fine, yeah, this day sucked or this thing didn't work out quite as planned. I'm going to take a step back, regroup a little bit, take a breath, and then just keep pressing forward. And I really love that you use the word grit. I love the word grit because I think that's really what it comes down to is like, how do you find the grit behind showing up for yourself or showing up for others when you just don't feel like it?
Well, and it's funny too, because you might know in the present moment or in the context of whatever challenge you're facing that this ain't it. This is not where I'm trying to be. And so if at the very least you might not be able to describe or articulate what that end goal is, what you need or want to focus on, you can recognize that right here and now, that this is not it. And so sometimes it takes some courage to be able to really take a look around and say, this is a fight worth fighting, because if I stay where I'm at now, I'm not going to get any better, and perhaps I'm going to be worse off. So I think it really requires some courage to look around in your community and determine whether or not you can be open and truthful to yourself and your challenge, and hopefully look around and find some support in the mix to redefine what that focus point is or what that goal could be. We got to know where we're trying to go. And if at the
Right.
very least we know that where we're at isn't it, I think we're able to take a step in the right direction.
I think the thing you got to be careful about when you think something's not it is really staying true to yourself. And so, for example, like if you're running up against a hard problem, and it's gonna, if you get past this problem, it's gonna, keep you on that path to your goal or whatever you're trying to do. Are you saying it's not it because it's too hard, or you're making up excuses in your head, or you can let self doubt kind of creep in on whether or not it's the right thing. So it's really important that you balance this isn't the right thing to do right now versus I'm going to give up because I'm letting doubt and excuses get in the way. And that's a really fine line to balance, and you have to really kind of understand where you're going and what you're trying to get to be able to kind of break through that and really understand if this is the right thing that I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sometimes it's interesting because I know a lot of folks, and maybe, myself or other folks, can agree to the fact that we don't tend to work as smart as we could. Sometimes we work a lot harder than we do smarter. And it takes some life experience, some lived lessons learned to get to a point where you say, it's not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. It is going to be a tough spot. I can anticipate it challenging me in ways that I had never imagined before, versus this is so authentically out of alignment with who I am and where I'm going that it is worth me throwing in that white flag and saying, I did my best to try, but I got to walk away. And nobody from the outside looking in on any regard can really tell you that now is the time to do that. You really got to trust yourself. And sometimes we do make mistakes. I agree to that point. I think you're right. Our society tends to sort of condition us to not want to be uncomfortable and to not really trust in our own courage and strength to push through the difficult moments to really break through to that moment of clarity. So I can echo a lot and agree to a lot of what you just said there.
Yeah. And Angie, do you have moments where you kind of find yourself in that position where you're battling whether or not you're on the right path versus battling like self doubt or just
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I was going to actually say is that I almost feel like persistence is like survival of the fittest. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's not even a thought, it's just an action. At least persistence for me is. So when I've been in situations where, it's like a very daunting task, or, I'm in a situation where I didn't imagine myself, I'm almost subconsciously just acting and going through the actions of finishing the task or getting the thing done, just because it's like this flight or fight kind of reaction that I have. So, and I mean, a lot of times I'm not always not conscious, but there are times where I got to get this done. There's no other option in my mind. So.
Right. And what do you do to like kind of push through that? Like, what are the mechanics behind it in your head?
A lot of it is, I mean, like, even though it's a subconscious thought, like, I'm not actively like thinking about it. I actually am present, like, just in the moment of doing.
Right.
Just making lists for myself, setting the dates, doing whatever the task requires. I'm just kind of right there trying to do it and not dwelling in the future, because
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes for me, antagonizing over either the past or something that has yet to come can really stop me from moving anywhere. So just trying to take the task at hand and get through the situation itself is what I do.
Yeah, I
And
think that's good.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's like a subconscious. It's like I'm not there, but I'm there. I guess it's really a weird dichotomy, but I don't know. I think I just am thinking about my own instances, and that's kind of what I'm evaluating of myself.
Yeah, that fear of the future and that dwelling on the past is so, I think it's crippling. Like I know it's definitely crippled me with some big decisions or big things that I needed to do. And it's like, how do you like kind of get past that to keep going? It's so hard, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is I just have an unwavering belief in myself that I will get out of whatever the situation is, that I will succeed in some way, and or that I've learned a lesson if it didn't go the way that I planned. So um, I think that's the only choices I really have in this life are to believe in myself. So no
Yeah.
matter how sticky the situation is, or uncomfortable, or it's a situation that I haven't been in, like I just have to believe that I will get through it.
Right. That's actually really interesting too. So let's pull on that thread a little bit. So how do you go about believing in yourself?
Loving yourself. It all, to me, it all boils down to that. I don't,
Yeah.
I I think a lot of people grow up with this like belief that they're not good enough, they're not enough. So I think when you stop believing that and you realize that there's a purpose for yourself, whether you know, understand it or not, um, life becomes a lot more bearable.
Right.
Yeah, I think it requires you to be open to the unknown. As much as we want everything to be somewhat of an educated guess, and you can spend your entire life searching for those clues for certainty, there's really nothing certain in the world, right? And except for
Oh,
maybe
there's
love.
one thing.
Love, yes. And I
No,
think,
there's two things. Maybe it's life and death.
yeah,
Those are the
sure.
things that are
I,
certain.
the thing that you have the power and the authority to sort of control or dictate for yourself is the belief, like you said, the belief in yourself. Anything you can pour inward, anything you can pour into yourself, anything you can do to help sort of build that strength and resilience and persistence to whatever the world is going to throw your way is really rooted in being open to the unknown, in my honest opinion. And I think that stands in direct opposition to our ego and in
Mhm.
direct opposition to authority and all sorts of things that the Western world for sure, tries to impress upon us from a really young age. And I think that that's super interesting when you come across opportunities to speak intergenerationally or across different intersections of identity in our social behaviors and understandings of our purpose or of our impact. That's the life lessons that I, completely thrive on as a sociologist and as a social scientist and as somebody who really digs the idea of, learning outside of the classroom. I think that's part of why I've fallen in love with that whole industry. Um, and just the opportunity to be able to find those sort of blind spots in myself through the way that others either see me shine or maybe where they illuminate spots where I can maybe get stronger. It's really up to us to take those opportunities for learning and run with it. We don't like to be uncomfortable as human adults who think we got some things figured out. But I think that that's the moment in time where you were tested and you're able to either push through, towards those goals that we've identified or towards that vision or that focus that we've been working towards, or it's an opportunity to reframe some things and start scratch from new.
Yeah, I
So how
think
do you?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the only thing I realized this, I had like an epiphany a while back that the only thing I really could control was my thoughts about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, my thoughts about myself determined my state of mind and my happiness. So, like, I think I try to, if I'm trying to be persistent or to push through something, I have to reframe my thoughts to talk to myself in the sense that I will get through this, that, no matter how hard it is, there's a lesson to be learned, and that this is just one, leaf falling amongst all of the other leaves or whatever and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Right.
that helps. For me, it does.
No, absolutely. Kim, what's the process for you look like when you identify something you know you need to change?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think part of it, I'm a pretty critical minded individual without trying. So I try to push through that pessimism and to find an opportunity, right? I try to spin it as much as I can towards the positive. And so if I'm confronted, whether it's myself or, you know, a system or an individual or whatever, if I'm confronted with a challenge to do something different, instead of immediately going to like the break it down part of it, what is it that I've been doing that's wrong? How come what I've been doing doesn't work? How, you know, how am I lacking in X, Y, and Z to get there? Taking kind of a note from Angie's last couple of statements, where can I exemplify that I'm enough? Where can I sort of highlight and illuminate that I've been through something similarly challenging in the past? You know, how can I kind of coach myself through the fact that I've made it through 100% of my bad days in the past, and this is yet one more that I'm going to get through. So I have to get to a place where I'm my own best friend, where I'm my own coach, and I'm able to really like hype myself up for the challenge. And in that regard, I turn into sort of a Hulk, right? I'm like a beast on the matter, and I'm like, all right, so now I need to operationalize this thing that used to be incredibly intangible, right? How am I going to pay my student loans off? Good Lord, I have no idea. But but if I could start to sort of like tackle the how to get to one step closer to the end goal, then that's great. You know, what are the questions I need to ask in order to understand what my plan will become? Maybe today's not the day that I orchestrate the entire plan, but I'm going to figure out some information and put some more tools in my box to get to a place where I'll be able to create that plan much more sooner than I would have if I just completely ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I don't even see it as persistence. I see it as your survival. You know, I guess when this topic came up, I was thinking of more like survival. Like, what do you do to survive? You know, I don't know.
yeah, well, and that's a challenging piece in regards to survival, because that looks different for everybody, right? Privilege is a huge call to question in that conversation, because what it takes for one person to survive might be, you know, lamb's wool sweaters and pumpkin spice lattes on a cold fall day. But truthfully, what it takes to survive may be something entirely different in regards to the gray area. So I think it's really hard for me to assume that we're all on a level playing field in anything, but especially when it comes to that survival mode bit. Like, your struggle is not necessarily my struggle, just like your success might not look like my success. But at the end of the day, persistence is one of those tools, one of those sort of self-fulfilling tools and practices and actions that is going to look different for all of us. But I think the fundamentals kind of remain the same. A lot of
I
it
think for
has to
me,
do with some of that self-talk, and a lot of it has to do with what does our network of support look like? What does it mean to truly have focus, have clarity, exude strength and courage in those choices or decisions? And then how do you just do that over and over again, building up patterns of success to get there?
yeah, I think the other part to survival though is I think persistence. You definitely have to have persistence to survive, but there should be a point where your persistence enables you not just to survive, but also to thrive. So I think that's like the ultimate goal, right? Is for you to thrive in whatever you're doing or whatever you're persistent at, and life, career, family, whatever's important to you. I think you want to
Yeah,
get to a point where you're thriving for sure.
absolutely. I think that's really good. I mean, and it's subjective, right? Because in order for you to be in a place where you can look back and say, hey, not only did I like achieve my goal, but I crushed it. I like annihilated all the challenges along the way. Like, you know, some people, some places, some life experiences, you might just only be able to get through them. But there are some certain things looking back in my past, and I'm sure you all can do the same and say, not only did I achieve that goal, but I like killed it. Like, it was like above and beyond anything I could have expected. And so, you know, the social science in me is like, well, what patterns and behaviors and trends and things allowed for that particular example to not just be a survived and gotten through it kind of thing, but I actually like killed it. I dominated. I made above and beyond everything that I could have never expected happen. And what was different in that picture, in that regard, especially internally with my, you know, your headset and your heart set, like
Yeah.
what was different in that space that allowed me to just incredibly thrive there? Whereas another example, I just had to kind of grit my teeth and get through it. How how do we see the differences in that? And what is that magic? Because I'd like to bottle some of that up for the next time, you know?
I have an example of that, like recently. So, I was it last I this week actually today, or like I think it's this week, I will have been working out 3 months at least, 5 days a week,
Awesome.
which I'm very proud of myself because
Yeah.
I've not been accountable to myself. But I think what I did, Kim, to answer your question, is I held myself accountable finally.
Hmm.
And I just have told myself that I will be consistent. And I've kind of held on to consistent and accountability as two mantras, like words of that have become my mantras. Where when I'm feeling shitty, or I don't want to go to the gym this week, or the 5 days, or I just consistently or I'll just always just tell myself, no, you've got to be accountable to yourself, and you've got to just be present for yourself, because I hadn't done that in a long time. So
Yeah.
that
And
was
if
one thing
What
for me.
what do you think changed for you? 3 months ago, where you said, "I'm going to be accountable and show up for myself." Like, was there something deeper behind that?
Um, yeah. So for me, it's family pattern of emotional eating,
Yeah.
not taking care of ourselves physically, which I think when you don't take care of yourself physically, you're not taking care of yourself mentally as well. So, or like you've talked to the point where it's like, oh, your family kind of trains you, or you've had this thought process of yourself of like, this is how we are. This is
Yeah.
how our family is. And I was with not a family member, but a family friend who's known me since I was born. And I had gained some weight because last year was just a really rough year for me. And he saw me going down this pattern, and he was very blunt with me. It was just like, hey, little girl, you're gonna die, or you're gonna fall into the same patterns of some other things that have happened in your family's past. And it just kind of like, it's like, oh shit, I'm depressed, and oh shit, I haven't taken care of myself in 10 years. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And I just literally was like, you got to take care of yourself, and you got to be accountable. And I think that word just kind of, I don't remember. I think I also read something that said, oh, it was a movie. There's this movie out where this girl, she's running. I think she's like becomes a runner, and she loses all the weight. And I think in the preview I saw, she had said something about not being accountable to herself. And I was just like, I'm not being accountable to myself. And so I've just kind of really tried to just keep reminding myself that I need to be accountable to myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what shifted for me.
So it sounds like, is it fair to say you had a different kind of why than just being healthy or losing weight, or like it was a deeper why for you?
Oh, for sure. 100%. Like, I think people get into the ruts of following like what their family's legacy has, I think legacy has been. Um, I think you pass these processes and things onto your children subconsciously, these
Yeah.
behaviors. And I just don't want to make the same, I don't want to create those same patterns for myself. And I'm, like you said, I'm stopping it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can. So I'm trying, I'm trying to. So yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's huge, Angie. I mean, that's huge on an individual level, but it's also like you just like go up and up and up on layers, right? So like culturally and all sorts of things, whether that you're talking about like an urban lifestyle or a rural lifestyle, you're talking about a working class lifestyle or a particular ethnicity or race or whatnot. We find all sorts of reasons and to the point whys for whatever we do or do not do. Oh, we eat fried foods every day. I mean, it wouldn't be a home cooked meal without a giant piece of meat on the table or whatever topic you want to get into. And I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of consistency to that point to define what that why is for you, especially when you're going against the current of something that seems to have been imprinted on you as the normal. And so, you know, a lot of the things that motivate me as an agitator in this world, as somebody who likes to fucking stir the pot and be somebody who jams the culture of anything.
What? We would have never guessed.
I feel like, you know, I kind of get off on the fact that, like, if I have a chance to sort of be that one fish who turns course and goes against the flow in a lot of that stuff, I'm the only one out of my family who doesn't smoke cigarettes, right? I'm the only one out of my family who's not drinking at least a 6-pack likely every night, you know? I mean, not that I can't throw down and not that I don't enjoy my own vices, but there's a reason for why, at least on this little rebellious Taurus world of my own, that I stay motivated to be the one who goes against the grain. And I've found, hopefully, in my 35 years of life so far, a few more positive impacts in that regard than just being, you know, some angsty, rebellious individual. But I think that there's a couple of major parts of what you were saying there, Angie, that resonate with me. And I can see on a systems level that resonates with a lot of folks who become, you know, curious about how to kind of own their healthy lifestyle as the first or the only person in their family to do so. And hopefully not so much in regard to a reaction of maybe a health diagnosis or the loss of somebody close to them or whatever your motivating factor is. There's no wrong reason or way to have become motivated. I think that it's just really important for us to find a balance between what that sort of like shock and awe part sort of stems and becomes the why for us moving forward.
Yeah. And I think we all ultimately at the end of the day have the ability to change our situation, to change our perceptions, to take accountability of ourselves. We just have to, one, believe in ourselves and know that we can change it, you know, that it isn't the way it is just because somebody says it is. It's, you have that ability to change your thoughts and to be happy versus like unhappy. This goes back to our last episode. I don't know if it was a couple episodes ago about perception, but to me, it goes back to perception. You have that ability to change the perception about yourself. That story that somebody's been telling you about yourself, and the story that you've told yourself that you don't know how to change or that you can't be a better athlete or whatever. So I guess back to persistence, though, it's all about changing that dialogue and just believing in yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for me, like changing the dialogue for me came in the form of taking complete ownership of my life. Like every single thing that I've ever done or has ever happened to me is my fault, right? Like I put myself there. The decisions I made, the choices I made, the choices I didn't make when I should have made them, or when I gave into fear for whatever reason, I put myself in those positions, you know, up into and including like all the bad stuff, all the depression, all the midlife crisis, all that shit. That was all my fault. And once I kind of got to that space and realized like, you are here because you wanted to be. Now you need to change. Now you need to change. And you're wise because you never want to be broken again. And once I got those two things kind of in place, everything else kind of just fell into place. Doesn't mean like I don't like have bad days and I don't want to go do certain things. It just means like my why and my purpose is bigger than my excuses now.
And Carlos, I don't think that you'll ever be broken again. I think life is fucking hard, and we are meant to struggle, and we are meant to go through these things that we go through because it enriches our lives and it makes the sweeter things so much more sweeter, you know.
Yeah, it's displacing.
Like I try to find the happy medium in all the suffering that we go through. Like it's life. That's life. You get to suffer, and not that it like feels great, but I don't know.
Well, you earn it, right? It's earning it. Yeah. You can call it suffering. You can call it whatever you want. Call it work, but you can earn it.
I think the end goal in all of that is to not, one, you got to define what the fuck is going on in your world. You got to get clarity somewhere in that mix, like the good, the bad, all of it, right? Purpose driven or otherwise, you have to be able to articulate or find the words to describe, to frame what it is that you're facing or going through. And then I think at the end, the strategy comes in displacing or placing responsibility in that mix. Call it fault, call it fate, call it whatever. You got to find that pivot point of this is what it is and this is what I'm going to do about it. So like it's about breaking down sort of that victim mentality and that helplessness and that
Yeah.
hopelessness. And it's
I
really
would,
hard
I
to
would,
get to a place like that if you don't have 2 feet to stand on, or you don't have a network of support around you, or you're consistently taking on other people's battles and never looking at yourself with such, you know, rigidity or strength. Like there's a lot of distraction in that world. And so you know, the second you can kind of place yourself at the center for you, because you are the only thing that you can really truly control and pour into, I think that we find ourselves in a much more powerful place than maybe a lot of us have ever been before. And especially when you can pivot that with the positive energy it requires to remain persistent moving forward.
you can choose to stay a victim, or you can learn from what happened to you. I
And
think.
it's all about responsibility. I mean, because you can say, oh, Sally Mae is responsible for my lifelong debt and this, fuck this, all this. No, okay, yeah, but you know, there might be a little bit, Kim, that you could hold on to in the name of responsibility as well. Because I certainly remember, you know, those FOSSA.gov checks coming in and some choices I'd made in regards to some of that, you know, and you know, you can't beat yourself up over the past. I think it's really, really important to have a sober look at some of those decisions and indecisions that maybe we've gone through and kind of pull out some patterns in regards to the strategy moving forward. But ultimately, we got to live in the present and hope for the future. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is on solid ground with 2 feet facing forward with courage and persistence to be able to tackle any challenge that comes your way in the future. So I mean, it's so much easier said than done, but I mean, I know I'm grateful as fuck for you guys and a lot of folks in my corner who are able to speak really candidly to not just the parts that they've been successful at, but the parts that they've felt defeated in. Because I think there's to learn in kind of the weeds of that.
Yeah. And I think it's really important what you just said too. It's something I hadn't thought of until just now is you got to surround yourself with people that are willing to be truthful with you, hold you accountable, build you when they need to build you, and then call you on your shit when you need to be called on your shit.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. Just like this uncle of mine, he was very blatant with me. He was just like, well, you're getting fat. Like, you need to take care of yourself, you know? Like, did I hear that? Was that the best delivery? But he loved me enough to tell me, like, girl, wake up, you know?
Yeah.
And I did, thank God, you know? Like,
yeah. And that's so hard because like a lot of people will take a comment like that and let it destroy them.
Absolutely. And you could have
I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
I know I was gonna say, and you could have too, but it requires an inner strength and a commitment to being open to people that you've determined value you and love you and are coming from a place of love. Sometimes we have to sort of decipher that, and sometimes we don't see people for who they truly really are in our lives until maybe it's too late or too hurtful or whatever. And I think it's just really important to, you know, be true to yourself. If this person would have came across and said, girl, you're looking kind of funny, like it's about to be whatever season, how come you don't wear, you know, these cute clothes anymore, da 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 da. Obviously the mentality and purpose of their comment is a little bit off, right? Like superficial, I should say, rather than them saying, hey, I come from the same family you come from, I see that you are struggling, girl, you've put on however many pounds, and I care about you and this and that and the other thing. It's not coming from a superficial place. This person means something to you, and you're able to receive the comments in the right vein. And I think there's a lot of factors at play, especially if you surround yourself with more people than necessary, that it takes a long time to realize that like not everybody's opinion is as valid as you think they are, and their opinion, it might fall on you differently on any given day or any different topic, but what you do with the truth of that matter is really, really telling. And I think that was a really good example to share with us and our listeners, because you trusted, you know, this person who's on the inner circle of your family friends, and you knew that comment wasn't malicious or superficial, and you knew there was truth in what they were delivering to you.
Yeah, no. It was coming from a total place of love, and he's actually not my family member. He's like my dad's best friend from the Navy, his Navy days. But so he's seen me my whole life and everything. So I knew it came from a place of love in the sense of concern.
Yeah, and you were
So,
open to receiving it. And that's the other part. Like, you weren't just like, oh, whatever, that's your opinion, next. You're like, no, I'm open to hearing what you actually truly are saying to me, because I need to believe it. I know you're right. Like,
yeah, and I think I had been I had known that I was going down that route, and I think I needed to hear it, you know. And it just really kind of woke me up to the fact of like, holy shit. It was more actually not to the fact that I was out of shape. It was more to the awareness that, oh my God, you've been really depressed, and that was something I hadn't really acknowledged. So it was kind of like this like epiphany, and I actually got to release a lot of the things that was holding in. So it was kind of a good thing all around. So, and there are days today even when, you know, like I had put on a lot of weight, and for myself, and there are days when, you know, I've been doing it for 3 months now. It's definitely not where I want to be at all, and you know, I don't see the immediate results because I think we live in a culture of we want immediate change, given whatever percentage of action that we've taken to, like, we want to see the results now because we're kind of a results driven society. And so there are days where I have to really literally keep telling myself that mantra of accountability and consistency, and like just talk to myself, and like tell myself you're healthier, you feel better, your mental clarity is better, and just kind of like remind myself of why I'm doing this, you know, and I'm hoping that this will stick.
Yeah.
So,
Well, don't hope, just know, right? Like, know and have that faith in yourself that you're going to keep going
yeah. Yep.
absolutely.
because you got your why.
3 months now you've been working on it?
Yep. Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
it should be a pattern by now, right?
It sounds
Should
like
be,
it
yeah.
is. Yeah, you got
A
all the
habit.
pieces. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, do you have like goals and everything that you've set up for yourself for that?
Um,
Even
my
stuff in
goal
your head, right?
my goal is to eat healthy, to not diet, to make better food choices, to not emotionally eat, and uh, to just be active. And at least 5 days a week. That's my goal. You know, and I was on vacation the last couple weeks, and I actually only worked out 4 times both weeks. And I'm trying not to beat myself up that I didn't get I didn't get to work out at the gym or to do a workout like I typically do 5 days a week. But, you know, still continuing to go to the gym today, or, you know, get my workout in. But yeah, so that's kind of where
I
I'm
think the
at.
important thing there is like you actually worked out on vacation, which I don't think a lot of people can say, and you came
Yeah,
back and you got right back on it, which is always tough coming off of vacation.
right.
Would we argue that that in and of itself is persistence?
There you
Yeah,
go.
it
Ding,
is
ding, ding.
persistence. I
Good
was
job,
going
you
to add to
guys.
the persistence thing, but I think forming habits help with persistence too.
Sure.
Absolutely. I think
Well, that
you
gets
hit it like right on the head at the beginning. I was like, okay, I can't help but thinking like bumper stickers or like Hallmark cards. Like, I'm so cheesy. I don't know what that is, but you said consistent, and I hear consistent, and I hear persistent, and I want to get into some sort of like Dr. Seussy rhythm rhyme sort of thing about
Maybe
it.
it
And
is.
there's no way
I saying persistence instead of consistent.
consistent. Like, I really don't think that there's any way that we can acknowledge the act of persistence or being persistent without consistency. And it takes practice. Even if there's an extra day between your workouts or whatever, you jump back on and into it. Even if, we fall back into bad habits and we react instead of respond. And, we're all humans and incredibly imperfect. The idea and the commitment, the accountability to being consistent in our attempt and pursuit of persistence. I mean, that's everything. And it takes a lot. We're vibing on a much higher vibe than a lot of people in this world are, just in the fact that we're having these conversations and we're into the idea of growing ourselves and being better for ourselves. And I think that a lot of folks on the fringe of our lives it sounds very much like in the last couple of months to the last year or two are really picking up on these folks got something different going on here. And I don't think that we would have been able to say that. At least I know I wouldn't have been able to say a lot of that, a year ago. So I commit to staying consistent and pushing towards persistence. And a lot of that credit goes to, y'all being so close to me as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we do a great job of kind of motivating each other and keeping each other on task and on purpose, for sure. I love you guys for that.
Aw, we love you too. It's going back to having
Yes,
that support system, I think.
Absolutely.
And knowing that
for
you
sure.
have people in your life that you can help you stay accountable or get you back on track.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, I
There's
think you hit it on the head, Kim. Like, think about a year ago. Like, where were you at a year ago right now? I was in a crazy place a year ago, right?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and plead the fifth on that shit. Thanks.
I know, Kim, right? Isn't it been like a year almost since
It's
all the
been
stuff that's
so
happened?
long. It feels really crazy to think about. I mean, and I think that life doesn't get any easier. And to that point, you sort of choose what to focus on and what to pour into. And if for the first time in a while, you've realized that you've put yourself in the back seat of your world, it takes a little bit of unpacking to get to a point where you put yourself in the driver's seat. You put yourself first, even for a couple hours a day, even just for the physical activity and health wise of it, never mind the mental health or financial health of it all. So if there's one thing I know for certain, this world isn't about to cut us any breaks. So I don't think that we need to be cutting ourselves any breaks in the name of excuses either. Life will be very persistently difficult. So what are we about to do to make it
silver lining in it all,
For real.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, I mean, I think in that regard, we've come to a pretty nice end spot for our conversation, at least for tonight. I know we have intentions and plans to add more content to our website and our blog and other social media platforms in regards to persistence. I know we'll have some things on our mind after we get done recording on the call tonight, but any last thoughts that you all would like to leave with our listeners in regard to our topic today?
For me, just like I think having that dialogue with yourself is really important to stay consistent and persistent. So, and believing in yourself.
Yeah, and I think for me is understanding your why and owning your life completely will allow you to have the persistence that you're looking for. And don't forget to visit our website at stormchamp.com.
Absolutely. Well, thanks you guys for being candid and open in the dialogue and conversation today. We'll be sure to link everything up, like Carlos said, on our website at stormchamp.com. And until next time, we'll talk to you all again soon.